Tom Phillips vanished with his 3 children into New Zealand's rugged Waikato wilderness in late 2021. Following a bitter custody dispute, for nearly 4 years, they lived off the grid, surviving in dense bush and harsh terrain, evading a relentless police manhunt. The story caught national attention not just for the length of the disappearance, but for the mystery of how a father and his young children managed to stay hidden in such unforgiving conditions. Their lives became a tense blend of survival and secrecy, stretching across remote campsites and isolated landscapes. The final chapter unfolded in 2025 during a police confrontation, ending Phillips' flight and leading to the safe recovery of the children. This introduction shares the gripping account of a family's struggle caught between legal battles and wilderness survival, shining a light on the lengths a father went to keep his children close and the difficult questions their ordeal leaves behind. The disappearance and the family dispute. The story of Tom Phillips and his 3 children is deeply tied to a long, painful family conflict that shaped their years spent in hiding. It all began with a custody battle that spiraled into a nearly 4-year disappearance, leaving a small New Zealand community and the entire nation gripped with worry and questions. This section explores the unsettling timeline of events, the tense family dynamics, and the desperate measures taken by a father trying to keep his children close, despite the law and mounting risks. The initial vanishing act. In September 2021, Tom Phillips and his children Jada Maverick and Ember vanished from their rural home in Maricopa. Their vehicle was later found abandoned on a nearby beach, a quiet signal that something was amiss. For nearly 3 weeks, the family was off the grid, only to reappear claiming they had been on a camping trip. Authorities viewed the disappearance as suspicious. Phillips was charged with wasting police resources. This episode was an early warning of the drama to come. The custody conflict behind the disappearance. The backdrop of this vanishing was a bitter custody dispute. Phillips did not have legal custody of his children, yet he took them without consent. The family court was locked in a contentious process, with emotions running high on both sides. Tom's actions were seen by his estranged wife and authorities as unlawful, while Phillips seemingly believed he was protecting his children from a system he distrusted. This conflict was the catalyst for the family's second and final disappearance in December 2021, disappearing without a trace. After December 9, 2021, Phillips and his children vanished again, this time for nearly 4 years. Unlike their first brief absence, there was no immediate search. Phillips had informed family members of his general plans but refused to disclose his exact location. His disappearance sparked a nationwide search over time, complicated by Phillips' knowledge of survival skills and the rugged Waikato wilderness, which helped him evade detection. Life in hiding and sparse sightings. During these years, sightings of Phillips and his children were rare and often unclear. Sometimes, they were glimpsed in camouflage, moving quietly across farmland, or spotted on quad bikes. A string of alleged robberies from grocery stores to banks were linked to Phillips, often with one of his children reportedly present. Surveillance footage occasionally caught fleeting images of them, but they remained distant shadows. Theories of outside help. One mystery lingering throughout this saga was how Phillips managed to remain hidden for so long. New Zealand police believed he may have received aid from others. A remote, well-concealed campsite was found months after his disappearance, equipped with essentials that suggested planning and outside support. Whether neighbors or strangers, someone seemed to be quietly assisting the fugitive family's survival. The human toll. Throughout this ordeal, questions about the children's well-being haunted the story. Without access to formal education or proper health care, the experience in isolation, surrounded by tension and uncertainty, would leave lasting effects on their development. The family dispute tore apart not just legal ties, but the sense of safety and childhood itself. This chapter of Tom Phillips' story sets the stage for the tragic and violent end to the search, and highlights the dark side of a family dispute that stretched into a desperate battle for control, survival, and custody in New Zealand's wild heartland. Life on the run. Surviving the wilderness. For nearly 4 years, Tom Phillips managed the impossible. Deep in the dense, wet bush of New Zealand's Waikato region, he hid his 3 young children while evading a nationwide police hunt. This was no simple camping trip or brief escape. It was a survival story marked by constant movement, scarce resources, and the ever-present threat of discovery. To survive this long in such unforgiving terrain required knowledge, determination, and sheer grit. Plus, perhaps, help from unseen allies. The wilderness as a shield and a challenge. The Waikato bush is thick, tangled, and often harsh. It's a landscape of steep hills, damp undergrowth, and weather that can turn cold and wet without warning. For a family on the run, the bush both protected and tested them. It offered cover, making them nearly invisible to search teams using helicopters, drones, or dogs. At the same time, it demanded constant vigilance and survival skills just to stay alive. Phillips, described as a seasoned hunter and bushman, knew how to move silently through the terrain. His familiarity with the land, gained from years of pig hunting and time spent outdoors, gave him a critical edge. Yet, the challenges were enormous. Finding safe water, edible food, and adequate shelter, while keeping his children fed and protected from exposure, posed a daily struggle. Finding shelter off the grid, the family didn't stay in one place for long. To avoid detection, Phillips moved campsites frequently. Their shelters were simple but effective, a mix of tarpaulins, camouflaged netting, and natural materials woven into makeshift lean-tos. These hideouts blended into the bush, with no obvious signs of human presence, like trash or large footprints. The ability to build such elusive shelters was vital, allowing the family to rest and hide without leaving clues. Their campsites also contained essential items and ammunition, to water containers and food supplies gathered and maintained with care. Supplies occasionally came from hardware stores and grocers, obtained through theft when necessary. These efforts ensured they had basic necessities beyond what the wilderness provided. Securing food and water in the wild, Phillips relied heavily on foraging and hunting native wildlife. The New Zealand bush is home to invasive species like wild pigs, possums, and deer, which he pursued for meat. Foraging for berries, edible plants, and possibly small game supplemented their food supply. Water was sourced from streams, rivers, or collected rainwater, but attention to hygiene and safety would have been essential to avoid illness. Despite his survival skills, the need to supplement these natural resources led to several break-ins and thefts in local communities. Items like batteries and warming gear helped extend their ability to endure the shifting seasons. The combination of wilderness survival techniques and opportunistic supply theft kept the family going through the years of hiding. Staying hidden while protecting the children. The biggest challenge of all was the children. Phillips had to balance the basics of survival with protecting the young minds and bodies in his care. The wilderness provided no schools, healthcare, or stability. Those children grew up outside the law and out of reach of social services. Phillips' knowledge and skills likely kept them safe physically, but the isolation and lack of normalcy left uncertain impacts. To avoid detection and protect his family, Phillips took extreme measures. His movement was stealthy and calculated. Sightings were rare, and even when reported, he was able to slip away into the brush. The terrain itself was a formidable ally, hiding footprints and muffling sounds under layers of foliage and soft mud. The human cost of survival on the run, living apart from society and under constant threat, took its toll. For nearly 1,400 days, Phillips and his children lived on the edge of survival, isolated not by choice but by circumstance. The physical demands were grueling. The mental strain of hiding, combined with the limited resources and exposure to danger, painted a stark reality of life on the run. Their story is a raw reminder of how wilderness survival is about more than skills. It is about fear, love, sacrifice, and desperation. Tom Phillips' ability to maintain this dangerous balance for so long speaks to a stubborn will and deep paternal instinct. Yet, it also raises tough questions about what was lost and what they endured, hidden away from the world. The shadowy manhunt, police and public search efforts. The search for Tom Phillips and his 3 children stretched over almost 4 years, creating a tense and haunting drama that riveted New Zealand. What began as a serious family dispute escalated into one of the country's most complex and frustrating It was not only a cat-and-mouse chase through the dense, impenetrable Waikato wilderness, but also a test of police endurance, community involvement, and the limits of modern search efforts in rugged terrain. An elusive target in a difficult terrain, tracking Tom Phillips was never going to be straightforward. With survival skills honed by years of outdoor experience, Phillips used the thick forests, rolling hills, and harsh weather as a cloak of invisibility. The Waikato bush, known for its dense undergrowth and wet conditions, prevented helicopters and drones from making much headway. Even trained tracking dogs lost his scent, swallowed by the wilderness. The manhunt spanned thousands of acres, with officers combing through rugged valleys, hidden creek beds, and remote farmland. Despite advanced technology and numerous patrols, Phillips remained shadow-like, sometimes glimpsed briefly, sometimes leaving behind only unconfirmed reports. His knowledge of the land turned the wilderness into a fortress almost impossible to breach. Police tactics and search operations. The police response to this prolonged disappearance was relentless but cautious. Initially, authorities launched widespread search operations with helicopters, police dogs, and ground patrols. As months passed and sightings thinned, the approach shifted to a blend of intelligence gathering and community tip-offs, alongside periodic, focused sweeps in suspected hiding areas. Several key moments intensified the search: surveillance and CCTV analysis. Footage from local stores showed Phillips and a child in camouflage trying to gather supplies, confirming they were still in the region. Reports of break-ins, alleged thefts, and robberies linked to Phillips gave clues, but also complicated the chase by indicating resources came from local communities, public appeals, and reward offerings. Police offered an $80,000 New Zealand dollars reward for credible information, encouraging public involvement but yielding limited results. The manhunt underscored the difficulty of policing wide rural areas where one person, familiar with the environment and moving cautiously, could easily escape notice. The role of the public and local communities. This case ignited intense emotions and divisions within small rural communities. Some locals quietly sympathized with Phillips, seeing him as a desperate father defending his children against a system he distrusted, while others condemned his criminal acts and the fear he instilled. Residents often found themselves caught between wanting to help and fearing reprisals or involvement. Despite this tension, public tips played a crucial but sporadic role. leading police to search certain areas more closely. Yet, for years, no clear breakthrough came. The community's eyes were peeled for any sign: an extra quad bike, a hidden tent, or unusual activity, but Phillips' stealth kept him beyond reach, feeding a sense of a shadowy presence stalking among them. The climactic confrontation and its aftermath. After years slipping through their fingers, police finally caught up with Phillips on September 8, 2025, responding to a burglary report at a rural farm supply shop in Piopio. Night had barely lifted when officers intercepted Phillips and one child on a quad bike. The resulting gunfire left Phillips dead and a police officer critically injured, ending the chase but opening a new chapter of sorrow and questions. Following the confrontation, the children were found safe too at a remote bush campsite, and one with Phillips during the incident. Their survival for nearly 4 years in the wild had amazed and troubled the nation alike. Searching for answers beyond the hunt in the wake of the manhunt, police investigations shifted toward how Phillips managed to evade so many layers of law enforcement and whether others aided him. The discovery of a makeshift campsite, stocked with supplies and hidden deep in the bush, suggested more than just wilderness skill. It hinted at outside help, raising new mysteries to solve. The shadowy manhunt had ended, but its echoes linger. It revealed the challenges police face in balancing intense search efforts with respecting community boundaries and safeguarding vulnerable children caught in the middle. It also highlighted gaps in how authorities handle long-term absences linked to family conflicts in isolated areas. This chapter of Tom Phillips' story is a stark reminder of how some struggles leave trails as hard to follow as shadows in the early dawn. Elusive, complex, and deeply human. The final confrontation and tragic end, after nearly 4 years moving like shadows through New Zealand's dense Waikato wilderness, Tom Phillips' life on the run ended abruptly and violently in the early hours of September 8, 2025. The story that gripped a nation came to its final, painful chapter in the small rural town of Piopio. This moment was a harsh collision between a desperate father fighting to keep his children close and the determined police forces closing in under staggering odds. The confrontation did not just mark the end of a manhunt, it unveiled the raw consequences of Phillips' long struggle, setting free painful emotions and difficult questions. A night of violence in Piopio at around 2:30 a.m. Police responded to a burglary reported at a farm supply store on the outskirts of Piopio. A quad bike speeding away from the scene caught their attention. It was carrying Tom Phillips and one of his children. The detail that timestamps this moment brings it vividly into focus. The stolen vehicle was hit by police road spikes, forcing it off the road and into the bush. What followed unfolded with shocking speed. As officers approached, Phillips opened fire with a high-powered rifle. A police officer was shot multiple times at close range in the head, suffering critical injuries. The chaos ended when another responding officer returned fire, fatally wounding Phillips. The child with him escaped unharmed and was immediately taken into police custody. This violent exchange was the grim culmination of years spent running, hiding, and living off the grid. It was a sudden thunderclap after years of silence broken only by scattered sightings and unsettling reports. Discovering the hidden children and campsites, with one child safe at the scene, police worked through the day using information provided by that child to locate the other 2 siblings. They were found in a remote campsite about 2 kilometers away in dense Waikato bush, untouched and thankfully unharmed despite the conditions. Images released afterward painted a stark picture of the environment the children had endured. The campsite's disarray told of a hard life. Tarpaulins pitched beneath thick tree canopies, scattered quad bike tires, empty drink cans, and makeshift shelters barely standing against the elements. Firearms and ammunition were found, confirming the dangerous reality Phillips had built around his family. The children's survival at this isolated camp, hidden deep within the wilderness, was a testament to Phillips' bush skills, but also a spotlight on the profound isolation and hardship they faced. The human toll and police reflection this final moment put a strain on everyone involved. The injured officer underwent multiple surgeries, facing a long recovery, while the children were placed under the care of Oranga Tamariki, New Zealand's child welfare agency. Both the police and the community were left grappling with sorrow and relief. Sorrow for the loss and violence, relief that the children were safe. Police Commissioner Richard Chambers was clear in his statements, emphasizing that Tom Phillips should not be viewed as a hero. The deadly shootout, armed offenses, and putting children in harm's way overshadow any sympathy for Phillips' motives. The tragic end underscores the dangers law enforcement faces when confronting desperate fugitives, armed and cornered. Unanswered questions and ongoing investigations. Even as the dust settled, many questions remained. Authorities launched a thorough investigation into the circumstances of the shootout, the origins of the firearms found, and whether Phillips received help during his years in hiding. The evidence from the campsite suggested outside assistance, supplies, weapons, and mobility that would be unlikely without aid. Meanwhile, the children's well-being became a priority. Experts warned of a long road to recovery for the 3 young survivors, recognizing the psychological and social challenges ahead after years of isolation, fear, and upheaval. The final confrontation in Puopio was not just the end of a long manhunt, it was a stark reminder of how deeply family conflicts can spiral, with devastating consequences that echo far beyond the wilderness where it all played out. The tragic close to Tom Phillips' story leaves a troubled legacy and a nation asking how this could have gone differently. Aftermath and ongoing investigations. When the dust settled on that cold morning in Puopio, the nation found itself grappling with a difficult silence. The dramatic end to Tom Phillips' years on the run left questions that police and the public needed answers to. The manhunt had finally closed, but the investigation was far from over. This phase uncovered new layers of complexity: how Phillips survived so long, whether he had help, and what path lay ahead for his children. Piecing together the final days, in the days after the confrontation, investigators focused on tracing Phillips' movements and uncovering how he sustained his family deep in the bush. Evidence from the campsite revealed stockpiles of food, weapons, and gear neatly organized, suggesting careful planning over time rather than chaotic survival. Some items appeared to be sourced from local communities, fueling suspicions that Phillips did not survive on wilderness skills alone. Police carefully examined surveillance footage, witness reports, and recovered supplies. The picture that emerged was of a man who skillfully dodged detection, but relied on networks beyond the forest. These networks, whether quiet neighbors or others sympathetic to his cause, had helped supply Phillips and his children. The ongoing probe aimed to identify these people and understand their role. Investigating outside assistance, authorities uncovered hints of outside aid almost immediately. Hidden trails, places where supplies were dropped, and evidence of recent visits to the camp pointed to support beyond what one family could manage alone. The investigation expanded to include local residents, friends, and anyone who might have provided shelter or provisions. This focus raised important issues for police and social workers. How much did the community know? Was there anyone who ignored or even enabled Phillips' actions? The line between sympathy for a troubled family and breaking the law blurred, creating tensions that the inquiry had to navigate carefully. The children's care and recovery, while the investigation dug into the past, attention turned with urgency to the children. Oranga Tamariki took over their care, facing the delicate task of guiding them out of isolation and into a world they barely knew. Psychological and medical evaluations revealed a mixture of resilience and trauma. The children's survival instincts had been sharpened, but the cost was their loss of normal childhood experiences. Professionals warned the road ahead would be long and challenging. Healing from years in hiding meant confronting fears, rebuilding trust, and adapting to schooling and social life. Family court proceedings also began, aiming to decide the children's future in a safer, more stable environment. Examining the police response, officials reviewed the law enforcement response from the first disappearance through the final shootout. The investigation aimed to see what lessons could be learned and whether any gaps allowed Phillips to evade capture for so long. The challenges of searching in dense bush without reliable leads had been immense. But questions remained about coordination, communication, and resource allocation over the years. This reflection was not about blame, but about understanding how to improve responses to complex family disappearances in rural areas. It highlighted the tension between aggressive search efforts and respecting community privacy, as well as the limitations faced by police when fugitives use survival skills and help from others. Legal proceedings and charges. Though Phillips died during the confrontation, the legal process continued for associated crimes. Charges related to break-ins, thefts, and weapons possession tied to Phillips were reviewed, with authorities weighing whether accomplices would face prosecution. The investigation also examined the possibility of criminal negligence tied to the children's welfare. Meanwhile, the custody battle that initially triggered the disappearance underwent reassessment under these new painful realities. Courts considered the long-term welfare of the children above all else, aware that their lives had been shaped by hardship few could imagine. A story still unfolding. Though Tom Phillips is gone, the impact of his actions remains very much alive. Investigators continue piecing together how this family managed to stay hidden for 4 years. The community still feels the echoes of the manhunt, the violence, and the divided loyalties. Most importantly, the children's recovery is a quiet story being written day by day. The aftermath isn't just about legal matters or police reports. It's about healing, accountability, and ensuring that such a desperate situation does not repeat. The full truth behind the years in hiding may never be completely known, but the pursuit of answers presses on. The story of Tom Phillips and his children remains a haunting reminder of the fragility and complexity within family conflict and survival beyond society's reach. Tom Phillips' story is one of survival, shaped by a father's desperate choices to protect his children at any cost, even as the wilderness became both refuge and prison. For nearly 4 years, the rugged bush of Waikato hid a family torn by conflict and isolation, a place where love and fear blended into harsh survival. The final moments in Piopio, marked by violence and loss, cast a long shadow over the resilience those children showed in their quiet endurance. Their journey leaves a lasting impression not simply of a fugitive's flight, but of a family pushed to extremes by circumstance. This story forces us to see every angle. A man fleeing what he believed was a threat. Children raised outside society's reach. Law enforcement caught in a relentless pursuit, fraught with danger. As the children begin the difficult path back into the world, their strength shines through layers of hardship and uncertainty. Their survival is a testament to human will amidst loss and confusion. Tom Phillips' saga challenges us to look deeper at family, law, and the unforgiving pull of nature. It reminds us how complex and painful these struggles can become when hope meets desperation.